Hi, this is Nicholas Bell with IONCINEMA, here to review Vanquish, the latest film directed by Gallo, which Lionsgate and Grindstone Entertainment Group will be releasing in theaters April 16th, 2021. Briefly before it will be available on demand April 20th, 2021. So Gallo, of course, has been around for a long time. Started out as a writer in the 80s. He wrote the screenplay for Wise Guys, which was a Danny DeVito, Joe Piscopo star for Brian De Palma, one of his brief forays into comedy, but also most notably Midnight Run, starring De Niro and Charles Grodin, which is considered a comedy favorite from that era. He also has a story credit on Bad Boys, the Martin Lawrence, Will Smith film that spawned a franchise. So over the past 2 decades or so, he's been developing his own directorial voice, in which his wife Julie Lott stars in many of his films, and she has a small role here. She also produced the film. So it stars Morgan Freeman as an ex-police commissioner named Damon. The 4-minute opening credit sequence goes through a variety of newspaper articles that show us that he was a celebrated cop that was injured in a shooting and has become paraplegic and now lives in a palatial estate where he moves around via a wheelchair. After that sequence, we move to a confessional booth where we learn that Damon is also a crooked cop. It is part of a group of crooked law enforcement officials that have been doing all kinds of nefarious things, and the priest that he's speaking to is also involved in whatever all that is about, and he basically says that there's a friend of his that he wants to help with her child who has some kind of terminal illness. That friend, of course, is Victoria, played by Ruby Rose. So the next sequence is Ruby Rose is at Morgan Freeman's, and basically he tells her that he needs her to do what she's good at, which she used to work as a courier for the Russians, transporting drugs and money all over the place. She refuses, and then he basically fakes kidnapping her child and says, if you don't go to do these 5 pickups at addresses I'm going to give you tonight, you're never going to see your daughter again. So she very angrily goes off, and then the narrative really does go along down that line to 5 different pickups, each one ending in murder and mayhem, each time Ruby Rose coming back and sharing barbed dialogue with Morgan Freeman, until of course we learn that this is all a ruse for various other reasons, not to give too many spoilers, but it's one of those films that could potentially be classified as so bad it's good. It's just that it's so monotonous, and it reveals its secrets in the first scene with Morgan Freeman as to what's going on. So the level of suspense, even that modicum of suspense about why he's doing this to Ruby Rose, is not there. Also, and maybe this is probably more the script's fault, by Samuel Bartlett, which was penned back in 2014. The dialogue makes this difficult to sit through. Mr. Freeman, who's worked previously with Gallo on The Poison Rose and The Comeback Trail from last year, ostensibly could have filmed all his scenes in one day. And there's really very little chemistry with Rose as well, who's acting with her hair in a different way in this, as opposed to her performance in The Meg. Here she's styled more like Sinead O'Connor, to such a degree that I'm surprised there weren't any jokes about that. I really disliked the look of the film, which has this jaundiced, sick color to it, which works fine for the outside sequences, but it never really lets up. And as it stands, most of the interiors are lit the same way, except for very briefly towards the end, we get some other lighting, perhaps. It reminded me of, it feels like a Walter Hill ripoff, but Walter Hill's later career, something like The Assignment, again where you have a notable queer woman, Michelle Rodriguez, paired with Sigourney Weaver, and they have kind of a campy face-off. And granted, that film has other issues and problematic depictions in it. But this film is just very monotonous and doesn't really have anything to glom onto that's even worthy of a camp cult following. Overall, I would give Vanquish 0.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you.
Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.